Hello there, it's Andy Ewens from FormaServe once again. In this short how-to and IBM I video set, we're going to take a look at development containers. For the IBM I Development Day in 2022, Nick Ewens and I gave a talk on development containers and how we use them. This video is the follow-up to that presentation, where I give examples of how we use development containers. I will be answering the following questions. What are development containers? What else can they be used for? How can they help developers? Do I need to be a Docker expert? Let me firstly state that this development scenario does not use nor touch the Merlin product that IBM recently announced. We don't need wizards for our coding, or maybe we do. No software need be purchased for the use of these development containers. So, on to the first question. What are development containers? Let me explain how we have developed in the past. Before starting a project, we need to set up a developer's PC or Mac. What version of Node needs to be installed? Is Python needed? Is a web server needed? Do we need to install Apache or IIS? Is a database server required? Do we need to install MariaDB or Microsoft SQL? What ports are free? Which IDE should we use? With a development container, all the necessary software requirements are configured within the container. This cuts down the setup time, as the environment is only set up once, and allows the developers to become productive straight away. The use of containerized workloads can greatly improve the efficiency of software development teams. We now have a company standard that any project must be developed in a container. It really is the way forward. The tools we will be using in this video are Visual Studio Code and Docker Desktop. We need to install both these products onto our local machine. VS Code can be found at code.visualstudio.com/download, and Docker Desktop download can be found at docker.com. Both the links are in the description. Both these products are free of charge. That'll keep the accountants happy. I'll be using Windows 11 as my desktop. I'm not a Mac man, never have, never will be. Old dog and new tricks comes to mind. Now we have VS Code and Docker installed, we need to open VS Code and install an extension. The extension we are after is called Remote Containers from Microsoft. You can see I already have it installed. This extension does not require any configuration, as it's ready to go. And now, what about Docker? We do not have anything to do with Docker apart from making sure it's up and running. The green status bar in the bottom left hand corner shows mine is up and running. Before we start, let me just show you that I don't have Python installed on my local machine. Nothing found. In this first example, I'm going to open a project that is already using a dev container. This example is a Python project. I'm not a Python programmer. I've forked this project from Microsoft, which has already been set up for dev containers, so I can easily find it. It's at andyewens/mslearn-python-products. We will follow the instructions for running it in a dev container. Next, we follow the instructions in the README. Only 5 steps. We clone the repository onto our local machine. We open the app in VS Code. We then reopen it in a container and run the Python program and point our browser to the application. Back to GitHub and use the code drop down to see the clone command we need to run. Copy that back to my terminal window, git clone and then paste, and very quickly it has downloaded that repo. An ls will show the new directory. I'll cd into the new directory, and again a quick ls to see if we have all the files there. Looks good. I'm now going to fire up VS Code from this directory by typing code-insiders and a full stop. I'm using the VS Code Insiders product to get all the latest features. But if you have the standard VS Code, just type code, space, full stop, and code will open. A great shortcut. VS Code is now opening our application. It will notice that this application has been configured as a dev container. I'll let you know how in a moment. It will then ask if we want to reopen it in a container. The instruction says to do so, so we click reopen in a container. That's chugging away. That's all looking good. Looking at the README, it says we now run the application. So in the terminal window, we can see it is now inside a container. It doesn't refer to my D drive Docker folder I cloned the application into. It is now enclosed in a container. I type in python app.py. The terminal window shows it's running. And a pop-up message saying that the application is running on port 5000. Do we want to open it in a browser? Yes, we do. We click that and it opens my browser and the application runs. And that is how we open an application that has been set up to run and be developed in a container, even though I don't have Python installed on my local PC. So how did VS Code know that it was a dev container? And back to VS Code. If we look at the files, there is a .dev container folder. It has two files, devcontainer.json and Docker file. I'll open these two text files. The devcontainer.json file is used by VS Code to say how the Docker container is run. Firstly, we can see the name of the container, which Docker file it points to, and the Python version it will fire up, version 3.9 in this case, and any node version, it's none in this case. Then we have specific VS codes and settings, loads of Python settings here, and two extensions for this one, so they are loaded into the container too. Then, which port it will use. The post create command will list any commands that need to be run after creating the container. Then the remote user, the VS Code server, will be started with. And that's our devcontainer.json file. And now on to Docker file. No extension to that one. It's a standard Docker file. It says where it's getting the container image from. In this case, it's a Microsoft image. And again, any node version. And that's the two files that VS Code needs to open a dev container. Very nice. As both these files are text files, we can amend them to whatever we wish. That's how we open an existing development container. Now that it's opened, we can make any changes to the app we want, as well as all the normal features that VS Code provides. Debugging, code completion, snippets, running, etc. etc. In the next part of this video, we'll be taking an existing project and make that into a dev container project, as that is the standard way of working here now. If you're working on a project, it has to be a containerized project. It's the way forward, Gov. We have a standard Node Express project that calls an Open Weather API to get the current weather of a location you input. All very straightforward. I'll open a terminal window in my weather application directory. Here we can see that Oh My Posh cursor prompt is telling me that the version of Node I have installed is version 14.18. Let me see if this app works on the latest version of Node in a container. I will not have anything to do with the version that is installed locally. It could be removed. I have my project opened in VS Code. We can see we have the Microsoft Dev Containers extension installed, as we have the remote extension button in the bottom left of the screen. If we click on this, it brings up all the remote commands for us to choose from. We will select the Add Development Container configuration files. It will walk us through creating the configuration files in the .dev container directory. We select the standard Node.js definition and press enter. and now it is asking which version of Node we want. We select Node 18, and then it asks if we want any additional features. We don't want any of those, so we just press OK. It then asks if we want to reopen in a container. We will just let that go for now. We can see we now have a .dev container folder with the files it needs in there. Let me change the name of the app to something more meaningful. I'll change that to Weather App. And when we are ready to start the container, we press the Remote Extension button at the bottom of the screen and select Open in Container. We can now show the logs if we want. Now that we are running in a container, I'll open a new terminal window. Next, we do an npm install as we usually would. And when that's finished, let me start the app, npm start, and it's all good to go. I point my browser to port 4000, and here we can see it running in the container. All very easy to do. Let me check which version of Node I'm running my app on. I'll start a new terminal window, then Node ---- version shows we are at 18.4, totally different version to what we have installed locally. A great result. So with just answering a couple of simple questions, we can have our app up and running and ready for development in a container. I can then push to GitHub and it is ready for the next developer to come along and make any changes. It won't care if Node is installed locally or not. If you need any further details about open source or IBMI, check out all our videos at learning.formaserve.co.uk and the articles we have written for powerwire.eu. I hope you find them useful and let us know if there are any other topics you want us to cover. Even through these difficult times, my company, FormaServe, is still providing training on our favourite platform, the IBMI. Whether it's remotely, through a mask, we are still here for you. If it's traditional programming using RPG and CL, or the modern methods of integrating open source into your infrastructure, we are here to help. We have over 30 years of teaching on the IBMI. Why not use us to get up to date and be at the forefront of the post-pandemic world? FormaServe uses Microsoft Teams software to develop top-notch training material. Take a look. You will not be disappointed. As many students have found, all our training is very informal. It's the way to learn. Find out what it's like to have fun while training. And that wraps up this quick video. Thank you for watching our how-to on IBMI video set. I hope you found them useful. Keep checking out our website learning.formaserve.co.uk and our YouTube channel. We regularly add new ones. Stay safe and we'll see you soon. Thank you.